We're here at Eager Hill, a favorite hiking spot just outside of Cranbrook in the beautiful East Kootenay region of British Columbia, an area well known for its beautiful mountain views. I'd say it's also the perfect place to be as we come together to share stories from across the country on protecting and enjoying the great outdoors. Welcome to Spotlight Features Nature. First off, we'd like to acknowledge that we are on the traditional territory of the Ktunaxa Nation. Except for the mountain peaks, the snow is all but gone for the season. But over in Ontario, they experienced an epic year of ice caves along Lake Superior, and photographer Jeff Dixon captured the experience beautifully.
Something about being out just in nature by itself, let alone the biggest freshwater lake in the world, and sitting on the shore and just knowing that there's nothing else anywhere like it. It's kind of what you live for. And anybody that really dives into photography is challenging yourself to create something different and create something new. And that's the aspect of it that I love. These caves every year, it's different. They form differently. Now that we're able to walk on the floor because the floor is frozen, you open up the opportunity for safe entry into the caves themselves. It changes so much. It's wild. We're talking about kind of getting a little excited to see it. It's just so cool. A misconception with these is that all of a sudden they form like that, where it's not. It's layers and layers of wave splashes. So the waves come in, they splash up, and then it freezes. And then it comes in again and it splashes, and then it freezes. There's a few of them where they create these blowholes, so that it'll freeze and create these arches, and then as the water hits it, it's like these ice volcanoes where it just shoots water up. And then again, that water comes down and freezes. And before all the snow falls, it's really neat because you can see these like step formations, and it almost looks like the water's running, but it's not, it's frozen in place. It's like these like ripples down the back edge of the caves, which is wild. And then just seeing 30-foot mounds of ice that you know aren't there in the summertime. It's unreal. It's like seeing a house on the water. Some of them get to be so high and so large. And then that feeling hits of, this is gonna be awesome, but then at the same time, it's, where do I start? I'm looking for isolated objects. I'm looking for things that are kind of by themselves, that stand out, that I can frame nicely. When I look for photographs, it's just composition. It's all composition based. Going to those spots, okay, try here, and then, yeah, that looks good. Maybe I'll try go over there. Okay, I'll go over there too. And then sometimes just spending all afternoon getting a little bit rosy cheeked and cold fingers and just kind of enjoying it. Finding these areas in these little cracks to be able to shoot these small little windows, it's a whole other world. I like shooting these frame shots where I use the ice and I use the snow to frame the edges of my photos. In this particular shot, I have the sun coming through this narrow window. So it's almost like all of the ice is glowing. You can see it with your eyes, and it's stunning. And sometimes I have to do that, is just put my camera down and just literally take it all in. I'm always trying to kind of better my best. So it's hard for me when I'm looking at something to know that, like, yeah, that's a good image, but is it that image? There's so much about Lake Superior that's awe-inspiring. We're looking straight out here and there's no land. It's like a sea or an ocean. I'm Jeff Dixon and I'm a visual artist.
No matter where you live in Canada, weeds are not typically a celebrated part of nature. But for one artist, the dandelion was an inspiration for an art piece titled Critical Pieces. The goal was to change people's perspective on how we see ourselves in the world, and ultimately alter how we see weeds.
And I thought, you know, that's just like the weed in the ditch. We dismiss it, right? We don't look at the beauty of those globes that are actually incredible. We look at a flower, we go, awesome. We look at a weed, we go, nah, don't need it. I'm Monique Martin, and I'm a visual artist.
For an artist, inspiration can strike anywhere, even a ditch beside the highway. It was on a drive that Martin happened to spot dandelions growing while listening to a story about dating apps. She began drawing parallels between the way we treat weeds and the way we treat people.
And how Tinder is causing kind of a social distress for some people in the right-left swipe. I mean, it's all about how you look. It's all about the external. It's not about who you are as a person. Early books on farming don't have the dandelion as a weed because when Canada was first settled, the dandelion was actually used as a food source. And it's an excellent food source and has all these great things about it. So it's interesting how it evolved and eventually it became a weed. And every dandelion petal in my project has silk screening on it.
After suffering a freak accident and being hospitalized, Martin began to draw inspiration from the dandelion. She says their strength and resiliency helped her to recover and inspired an art project.
I was going through something terrible and the dandelion was a great symbol for me to hang on to. Because visualize the little dandelion stuck in the crack in the sidewalk. It still blossoms. I start drawing gigantic dandelions on the walls of the hospital. This is their scale. This is how big I drew them. And my room was covered in papers 6 feet tall. And then I could use this tool.
The project was named Critical Pieces, a reference to the fact that Martin illustrated the dandelions by breaking them down into individual components.
Each piece is a critical piece in each human. And something you don't like about yourself, somebody else absolutely loves.
She also incorporated more life-sized versions of the dandelions. Many, many dandelions.
Again, I did this over 2,000 times. There are about 25,000 leaves inked both sides. And because each dandelion has at least 10 leaves, if not more. And the leaves are totally anatomically correct. I used dandelions from the field behind our house and made them exactly how they look. They were also all folded and given creases to look like real dandelions. It's a hugely intensive process. And then I used super sharp scissors and I cut each petal. I did them on trains, I did them on planes, hotels. I left little bits of paper all over the world so that, you know, people wondered, why are all these little yellow bits of paper on the floor? That was me.
And like seeds on the wind, the exhibition continued to travel after the work was completed, as it was sought by galleries around the world.
In the United States, it was part of an exhibition about racism in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and it was curated from all over the world, and they brought 30 artists together, and my dandelions were just set on the ground looking like they were growing there. And that was very exciting. And then there was one in Guelph where they put them in a window and you could see them through the window. And it was beautiful. In San Francisco, they were on the ground. Different places have approached the exhibition in different ways. I don't think about, when I'm creating something, how am I going to sell this? That's not where I start. I start with an idea that I want to share with the world, an idea that I think will change people's lives and change how they see themselves within the world. I got this. I can be like a dandelion. I can make this happen. I can be strong. I can be resilient.
When you think of nature in Canada, you can't help but think of our natural lakes and rivers. Up next is a scuba diver from the Okanagan who is cleaning up the bottom of the lakes to preserve and make water safe for everyone.
The water is a major resource for all of the Okanagan Valley. That's our drinking water source. It's just too important to just be filled with garbage.
We are about to head into the water and go see how much trash we can pull out of the water to make it better for everyone else.
Lots of boats go by, lots of people using it. It gets a lot of use every year.
One of the regional park dives we've done, we found an iPhone, came across the owner. So he said, you can keep the phone, I don't need it, so now it sits on my shelf. The iPhone still works as well. I've been diving for about a year and 2 months. It is something that I try to do at least 4 times a week because that's how much I like being in the water. And the only thing I have to focus on while I'm diving is breathing. Super calm, and it's all in all just a fun time. When I was younger, I always wanted to be a marine biologist, and this is the closest thing I can get to it around here. I also love making my YouTube videos. It shows people what's down there, so they get to see what's in all the lakes around the Okanagan. Find a whole bunch of little stuff that most people would slip out of their hands or they'd go swimming with and drop it. You never know what you're going to find in the water, and it's always a mystery when you do find things. Hoping to find a few treasures, but as much trash as we can find is always good.
Have you ever found the Ogopogo before?
Well, technically we found the Ogopogo. We found a statue made out of concrete. It is located at Paul's Tomb at the bottom of Knox Mountain.
We surprisingly saw one of his videos where he was actually cleaning the lake bottom off of one of our regional parks, and we thought, you know, this is a young man that's doing something at one of our regional parks. We'd like to help him by dealing with the garbage that he collects, but also by providing access. It allowed them to do a social dive and at the same time do some good while they're out there having some fun.
We're mainly doing it to keep it safe for little kids that would be swimming. Kids can step on broken glass, broken cans, anything of that sort, and we just don't want that to happen because it's not fun. Keep everything out of the water as best we can. Protects the fish habitat because fish can get stuck in the bottles. Bottles I've pulled out of the water, I have actually found fish still inside of them. The more we get out, the less fish get stuck and die.
Garbage in the lake, nobody can see unless you are a diver, so it's really important to tie into divers like AJ.
I struggle finding people to dive with on a regular basis to continue doing what I want to do, and that's keeping the lakes and everything clean. You can get people out there and doing something different. My future thing would be to do diving full time and constantly be in the water every single day. Don't throw your cans and bottles into the lake. I get that it's out of sight, out of mind, but we have to go in and clean it up, and it's affecting the habitat that we only have one chance to keep clean, and you guys are destroying it.
Ontario isn't just known for its ice caves. In the summer months, the humidity and abundance of yellow birch trees make it the prime growing climate for chaga. Known for its healing properties, this is truly one of nature's healing medicines.
Just steep in some chaga and artist conch. They're just 2 mushrooms that grow locally around here. Basically extracting them with hot water to make a tea, to get the medicinal components out of them and have a hot cup of tea. I'm Cody, and I believe in the healing powers of nature. I think I've always liked foraging, even since I was a little kid. I'd always go out picking berries and stuff with my mom. That was always kind of a part of my life. I kind of gravitated towards picking my own food and picking my own medicine. Tea out of it. Initially, I started foraging food on the West Coast when I lived on Vancouver Island. When I came back here, it was just natural. I just started looking around and reading different books and looking online for different things that grow around here, and chaga was pretty popular, especially with locals around here and natives, and just started looking for it. I went out by myself one day, and I think the first day that I went out, I got 30 pounds or so, and I realized like you can sustainably harvest this stuff. And I started seeing how many people have stories about how much it helps them with their pain, and different stories how people believe that it's actually healed their cancer. That's cleaned and chopped, dried out chaga, but basically it's this big black chunk that grows out of birch trees. And they can get upwards of, like we found a 43-pound chunk before. Sometimes you'll find 100 pounds on a single tree. So they get huge, they get really big. Yeah, it's more important to sustain the chaga than it is to harvest it. So I mean, if you're gonna take too much, then I don't think you should be taking it at all. 20–30%. For regrowth. That's my ultimate goal, basically, is to be as self-sustainable as possible. It's always a work in progress. Ultimately, I want to grow my own food, forage my own food, harness my own energy, and live off the land, and try and be as regenerative and reciprocal to the environment as possible. I have gratitude every day for the fact that I'm able to live where I live and do what I do, be able to help other people with it. Yeah, it's basically the driving force that keeps me going. I just realize how much it is helping and how much I love to do it, so it just makes total sense to just carry on and do it. And I could just really feel it at my core that this is where I'm supposed to be, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So it's pretty easy to keep going.
A group of youth and community members on Vancouver Island are taking their studies into nature to help the ecosystem on the SÄNGiNETHIN First Nations land. The students are learning restoration practices and, even more importantly, prevention.
So this place is called SÄNIDÐEÐEL. This is the first Saanich village, and so it's culturally significant and it's an important place to harvest. We have an origin story that SÄNIDÐEVEL, the first Saanich man, was from here. He came down with the rain one night and he knew all the teachings and the beliefs and the ideologies of Saanich. And so he built a village here and had a family, and all Saanich people are descended from him. 100 years ago, there was a cement plant that was here and decimated this ecosystem, extracting resources and being irresponsible with the waste. And so we've been down here for multiple years, healing this land and doing restoration to create an equilibrium in this ecosystem. There's a lot of invasive species that have taken over, and so we're here to take those out and plant native plants. The students that are down here today are from SÄNIDÐEVEL, and they are in a genocide studies class. And I feel this is relevant because there was an abundant amount of cultural genocide that happened here in Canada with the residential school system and the 60s scoop. The way that I look at this class being down here is I really want them to find the connection to land and a connection to their own identity. So the impacts of colonialism are why we're here today. And if we minimize those impacts and look at the land as if it's equal to us, if the trees are relatives, the animals are our kin, we wouldn't be in this extractive capitalistic system. And so I feel that if we change our mindset and look at the land and nature and the plants as if they're equal to us and not something to be extracted from, then we wouldn't have to do restoration work. You know, environmental restoration is plan B. If we can make our first step not extractive industry, then that would be incredible. I am optimistic with the persistence that we have, and we have a passionate crew, and we have a lot of support from community and volunteers, and I feel like this is really good work to be doing, and it's tangible, it's feasible, it's decolonization in a physical form.
to wrap things up, we're sharing one photographer's love of the hummingbird. He was so enamored with this little bird that he added a video camera to his gear to document the majestic bird in its natural habitat.
To me, a hummingbird is a symbol of fragile beauty. I guess where my ability comes in, to find the hummingbirds and to film them and to show them hummingbirds up close. So I've been a photographer for many years, but it wasn't until about 12 or 13 years ago when we discovered a hummingbird in the backyard that I went all out and got a video camera. It made me want to capture a little bit more than just a few still photographs. And I found that the hummingbird was quite cooperative. You know, it just kept a respectful distance. The hummingbird just went about its life normally, and I could film it. And because it was in my backyard, I was able to keep the camera steady on it, you know, for hours at a time and just see what they do. It was quite fascinating. So there's always little interesting vignettes that you could never dream up in your mind. But by watching the little birds, I see so many little interesting things. That's a beautiful shot. I had spent about a year filming her, and in that time she'd had 6 nests, and that's really surprising. And it wasn't just surprising to me, it was surprising to everybody that I talked to, including all the bird experts. So I spoke to people from Cornell and from UVic, and they had never heard of a hummingbird having that many nests in a year. But I'd been able to document that because it's the same bird in my backyard, and she would be in one nest sitting on eggs while she was still feeding the chicks from her previous nest. So she actually had 2 nests at one time. And when the chicks fledged, then she would spend her time incubating the eggs and feeding the other chicks out on the branches. So that was pretty surprising. This has opened up a whole new chapter in my life that I didn't expect to occur. I decided I'd go look for hummingbirds outside the yard. So I went to a little patch of protected land around here, and I started looking. And surprisingly, I found one. Oh, there's one right there. The first day. So I started filming that bird. As I filmed that bird, I would start to find more nests. So I just started to learn how to find them. And most of the time, the hummingbirds would show me where it was. I'd see a hummingbird, and as long as I kept my eye on it, it would eventually go right to the nest. And so that's how I started. It was so unique, I'd like to show it to people. So I started to do that. Facebook was a fairly new thing at the time. It caught on, and it went quite well. I got about 40,000 people following me and watching for the birds, and it grew a community. Boy, I've learned an awful lot, more than I ever thought I would. Well, hummingbirds are definitely fragile, and yet they endure some of the most harsh conditions that I've ever seen. Who knew that a hummingbird would be able to hatch its chicks in February in a snowstorm? And I've seen that several times, and it is totally amazing. If you want to see more hummingbirds, you have to take care of their habitat. So that's one of the reasons why I show people hummingbirds, is so that they become aware of where hummingbirds live, and then they protect their habitat. And that's just good for everybody. If you'd asked me 20 years ago if I would be filming hummingbirds today, there's no way I would think that. And yet it's added so much to my life.
And that's it for this episode of Spotlight Features. Thanks for joining me all the way up Eager Hill. For more interesting stories in your area, be sure to check out Shaw Spotlight on social media or head over to shawspotlight.ca. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.